The island no longer hid what it wanted. That night, the glow spilled openly from the jungle, veins of cold light pulsing through the trees, bleeding across the sand. The waves rolled back again, exposing the drowned city in full, its stone towers glistening with seawater and barnacles. The air hummed with voices, thousands speaking at once, a choir without breath. I should have fled, but there was nowhere left to go. The boats had rotted in their moorings, eaten through by salt and something deeper. The sky offered no help. Storms spun endlessly above, lightning illuminating shapes in the clouds that bent wrong, twisted like bodies viewed through broken glass. The radio clicked on again. My voice filled the barracks, calm, confident, official. Station 14 reporting in. Cycle complete. I smashed it against the wall, but the voice didn't stop. It rose from the floorboards, from the very air. It was in my chest. Drawn by instinct, or command, I walked toward the jungle. The glow guided me, each step synchronized with the drums that had become my second heartbeat. My wounds had closed, my exhaustion evaporated. I felt strong, too strong, as though I were no longer a man but a vessel. The clearing awaited me. The stones pulsed, their spirals burning with light. Ashes at the center reignited, fire climbing without spark or tinder. Around the circle stood figures, tall, pale, their limbs too long, faces hollowed smooth. They swayed with the rhythm, heads tilting in unison as I entered. One stepped forward, its surface shimmered, shifting, until I saw my own face staring back. My reflection smiled, lips cracking wide. "You are ready," it whispered inside my skull. I should have run, but instead I knelt. The fire roared higher, searing my skin, yet leaving no burn. The figures leaned in, countless hands pressing against me, cold as stone, forcing me to bow. My forehead touched the dirt, and the earth itself shuddered. The drums slowed, the ground split. Beneath the clearing, black water surged upward, carrying the drowned city with it. Towers clawed into the sky, dripping algae and bone. Faces floated within the waves, eyes open, mouths moving with the chant. And then, I joined them. I don't remember standing. I don't remember diving. One heartbeat I was kneeling, the next I was beneath the surface, salt filling my lungs without drowning me. The city opened before me, gates of spiral stone yawning wide. Inside, light pulsed like a heart, and I swam toward it willingly. The voices grew clearer, not chosen, made. The truth seared me. We weren't lured here for sacrifice. We were sculpted, reshaped until the island could wear us like skin. My predecessor hadn't failed. He had succeeded. He had become the warning. Now it was my turn. When I surfaced, it wasn't on the island. It was in the barracks, sitting at the desk, pen in hand. The paper before me bore the familiar words, "Leave before the third night." My hand wrote them, though I didn't command it. My mouth spoke into the radio, calm and steady. Station 14 reporting in. Cycle complete. Prepare the next. Outside, the tide returned, burying the city once more. The glow sank beneath the jungle, waiting. The drums faded into silence. And I waited too, patient and still, for the next soldier who would arrive, thinking he had been stationed here by accident. The island would greet him. Through me, I stopped pretending to be a soldier. The uniform was a costume now, its patches and insignias as meaningless as the empty radio. The island had stripped me bare. Each step I took felt heavier, not from exhaustion but from the weight of something settling inside me. That night, I dreamed I was flying above the island, watching it from the clouds. Only it wasn't an island at all. It was the tip of something vast and alive, rising from the ocean like a tooth breaking the surface of skin. The jungle was its flesh, the caves its veins, and I was lodged inside it like a parasite. I woke with my mouth full of salt water. My cot was soaked, puddles forming beneath it. Yet the door was barred, the shutters sealed. The sea had found its way in. I stumbled outside, coughing brine. The shoreline was farther than it should have been. The tide had receded unnaturally, sucking the ocean back for what looked like miles. The exposed seabed was slick with kelp, scattered with bones too large to be fish. In the distance I saw structures, not wrecks, not driftwood, structures. Stone pillars jutting from the mud, carved with spirals and eyes, half swallowed by seaweed. A city, drowned and waiting, exhaled by the retreating tide. The drum started again, slower this time. Not from the jungle, not from beneath the waves, from inside my chest. I pressed a trembling hand to my sternum and felt it, something beating along with my heart, not quite in sync. "You were sent here," a voice whispered. I spun. No one stood there. Only the pale man, far down the beach, pointing toward the drowned city. The realization sank into me, heavier than the brine in my lungs. I hadn't been stationed here by chance. The military didn't send people to this island to monitor weather patterns or test radios. We were offerings, sacrifices. My predecessor had known. That's why he'd written the letter. Not T-Wood. Or warn me away. That had been impossible. To pass on the truth, to keep the cycle alive. The island didn't just choose us, it required us. By dusk, the tide began to creep back, swallowing the city piece by piece. The pillars sank beneath the waves, the bones vanishing into black water. I sat on the dock, watching, salt stiff on my skin. The drums grew louder, merging with the crash of returning surf. My body trembled with the rhythm. I couldn't tell if it was fear or acceptance anymore. The radio flickered to life behind me. I didn't turn. The voice that came through was calm, steady, familiar. "Station 14 reporting in," it said, my voice. Every hair on my body lifted. "Cycle complete," the voice continued. "Prepare the next." I staggered inside, staring at the radio. The speaker buzzed faintly, no one there. Yet my own words looped back at me. On the desk lay a new piece of paper. Blank, except for one line scratched in trembling ink. "Leave before the third night." The cycle had begun again. And this time, I wasn't the warning. I was the island's voice. The island wasn't quiet anymore. It breathed. By the 6th day, every tree, every shadow seemed to shift in rhythm with the drums. Even when I stuffed cloth into my ears, I could feel the vibration crawling through my bones. My body no longer belonged to me. It was tuning itself to the island's pulse. I tried to hold to my duties, radio check, generator maintenance, perimeter sweeps, but they felt pointless, laughable. The radio only hissed silence. The generator coughed once and then sputtered out, as though it too had decided its work here was done. I didn't restart it. Darkness seemed inevitable now. At noon, I saw him again, the pale man at the tree line. This time he stepped out far enough that I saw his face. It was my own. Not exactly, but close enough. Skin drawn thin, lips cracked, eyes too wide. A reflection of what I was becoming. He lifted one arm and pointed into the jungle. Then he vanished, leaving the leaves rustling in his wake. My stomach knotted, but my feet moved before I could stop them. I strapped on my boots and walked where he had pointed, deeper inland. The trail thickened fast, vines tangling, air growing wet and heavy. Insects buzzed in clouds, their hum merging with the drums. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time dissolved here. When the brush opened, I found myself at the mouth of a cave. The glow seeped out from inside, pale blue, like moonlight trapped in stone. Spirals had been carved into the rock around the entrance, the same jagged patterns from the clearing. My hand lifted, trembling, tracing one groove before I realized what I was doing. A voice slid through me, not in my ears, but deeper. "Welcome back." The cave exhaled a cold draft, damp and metallic, smelling of rust and brine. I stepped inside. The walls glistened with moisture, carvings etched deep into the rock, spirals, eyes, hands reaching upward. The deeper I went. The more the glow strengthened until it wasn't just light, but substance, crawling over my skin, seeping into my pores. Then I heard them, footsteps behind me. I spun, flashlight beam slicing the darkness, empty. But the sound remained. Many footsteps, soft, dragging, always just out of sight. I fled deeper. The tunnel widened into a chamber, the floor sunken, filled ankle-deep with black water. The glow pulsed from beneath the surface. Shapes floated just below, limbs, faces, all pale and still. My breath hitched. They weren't corpses, they were waiting. Whispers rose, circling me, a chorus that filled the chamber without echo. You are chosen, you will open the way. I stumbled back, slipping on the wet stone. My flashlight skittered, beam sweeping across the far wall. For a split second, I saw something etched there in blood-red pigment. A figure kneeling, arms outstretched, swallowed whole by a wave of spirals. Me. I grabbed the flashlight, bolting out of the chamber, scraping hands and knees against jagged rock. The footsteps followed, faster now, closing in. When I burst into the daylight, the jungle was silent. No insects, no drums, only my ragged gasps. But the glow had followed me. I saw it seeping from the cracks in my skin. The island was inside me now. I woke at dawn with mud on my boots and no memory of leaving the barracks. My clothes were damp, streaked with soil, and my fingernails caked with grit as though I'd been digging. The cot was still pressed against the door. No one had come in. That meant I had gone out. My stomach churned. I staggered outside, rain-soaked air burning in my lungs. The jungle loomed quiet, heavy, but a narrow trail of footprints led from the barracks door into the undergrowth. My footprints. I followed them, dread tightening with each step. They wove into the trees, through the strangling vines until I found myself in that same clearing with the carved stones. But now the ashes at the center weren't cold. A fire smoldered, thin smoke curling into the gray morning sky. And someone had been there. The prints in the mud were larger than mine, bare feet pressed deep into the soil, circling the stones. My breath caught. I crouched, touching one print, still damp with rain. Fresh. Something moved in the brush. I spun, but nothing was there. Just the trees, watching. By midday, I was back at the dock, staring into the waves. The water looked wrong, too dark, too thick, as if the sea itself had curdled. Beneath the surface, shapes slid past, long, pale figures that never quite broke through. Each time I blinked, they vanished, but I knew they were down there, waiting. The radio was silent now, not broken, just silent, as if every frequency had been emptied. I turned the dial endlessly, but there was nothing, no static, no hiss, just a hollow quiet that pressed against my eardrums. I found myself speaking out loud, my voice rough. Why me? Why this place? The silence answered. My reflection in the window did not. For one terrible heartbeat, it lagged behind, moving just a fraction too late, its mouth curving into a smile mine never made. I smashed the glass with my fist. Blood welled. It against the cold air, dripping onto the floorboards. My reflection was gone, but the sense of being watched lingered. That night, I didn't barricade the door. I sat in the barracks with the lamps off, staring at the jungle glow. It pulsed like veins beneath the earth, in rhythm with my own blood. I couldn't tell if the sound outside was rain or the drums anymore. At some point, I realized I was humming, a low, tuneless sound that matched the beat outside. I clamped my hand over my mouth, horrified. The humming wasn't mine. It had started before I noticed. I tried to pray, though I hadn't in years. My words came out hollow, weak. The island didn't want prayers. It wanted something else. Sleep came in fragments, dreams, vivid and sharp, of the sea opening like a wound, pale arms reaching, pulling me down, a voice rising from the depths, sweet and terrible. Join us. Become whole. When I woke, the taste of salt clung to my lips, though I hadn't been near the water. I no longer knew if I was alone on this island, or if I ever had been. The third night came cloaked in a storm. The sky split open just after dusk, lightning tearing ragged wounds in the clouds, rain hammering the barracks roof like gunfire. I told myself the storm would drown out the drums, but I was wrong. They were louder, more alive, rolling beneath the thunder as if competing with the sky. I barricaded the door with my cot, stacked the supply crates against the windows. Every lamp burned, casting weak circles of light that quivered with each bolt of lightning. The air stank of wet metal and mildew. My heart thudded too fast, every nerve wired to break. The radio switched on by itself. Static poured into the room, not random but pulsed, staccato, like code. Between the bursts, voices slipped through, layered, chanting, climbing in pitch until it wasn't sound anymore but pressure, a weight pressing down on my skull. "Stop!" I screamed, yanking the cord. The radio went dead, but the chanting didn't. It had never come from the radio at all. A knock rattled the door. 3 slow, deliberate taps. I froze, every muscle seizing. Another knock, louder. The cot shifted an inch. My throat worked dry air. "Who's there?" The reply was not a voice, but the storm itself falling silent. For a breathless span of seconds, no rain struck the roof, no thunder cracked the sky, no cicadas shrieked. Only the knock, once more, closer this time, as though inside the room. I staggered back, knocking over the lamp. Shadows jumped across the walls, stretching, bending, reaching. Then came the glow. Through the cracks in the shutters, pale light bled in, the same cold shimmer I'd seen deep in the jungle. It crawled across the floor like liquid moonlight, seeping through every gap. The drums pounded with it, sinking to my heartbeat until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Something whispered my name. Not once. Over and over. Hundreds of voices, layered, some childish, some ancient, all pulling at me. I grabbed the letter from the desk, clutched it like a talisman. My predecessor had known. He'd felt this too. That's why he'd begged me to leave. The cot scraped back suddenly, though I hadn't touched it. The supply crates toppled one by one, deliberate, as if unseen hands dismantled my barricade. I bolted for the generator shack, rain slamming into me the moment I burst outside. The jungle glowed faintly, its trees veined with that impossible light. Shadows moved between the trunks, too tall, too thin, bending as if boneless. They didn't chase me, they waited. Inside the shack, I killed the generator. Every bulb on the outpost flickered out, plunging the station into blackness. My only hope was that if I cut the lights, maybe the glow wouldn't find me. But the glow didn't fade. It grew. Through the rain, through the walls, through my skin. My veins burned cold, as if something inside me wanted out. The drums slowed, no longer a frenzy, but steady, patient, like a heartbeat waiting for mine to join. And in that darkness, in that silence between lightning strikes, I finally understood the truth. The third night wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. I didn't sleep again. How could I? The drums were no longer distant. They were inside the walls, inside my skull, rolling endlessly. At times they seemed to sync with my heartbeat. Other times they staggered, mocking me, as though trying to pull me out of rhythm with myself. At dawn, my eyes felt raw, lids scraping like sandpaper. I staggered into the comms room, desperate to anchor myself in routine. The radio hissed and popped, filling the air with static, but something else layered beneath it. Faint voices. Not singing this time. Talking, murmuring. A language I couldn't recognize, yet I understood the intent. It was the cadence of a conversation, and I was the subject. I yanked the power cord. The hiss stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Breakfast was a can of beans eaten cold from the tin. The spoon rattled in my shaking hands. Every noise echoed too loud in the barracks, bouncing around like I was trapped in a hollow skull. When I opened the window shutters, I found the jungle staring back. Not moving. Not alive. Staring. The leaves hung heavy, still, as though the entire forest was holding its breath. That's when I saw him. A man stood at the tree line, half hidden by shadow. His skin was pale, sun-starved, his clothes in tatters. For one moment I thought maybe it was my predecessor, gone mad, returned. "Hey!" I shouted, running outside. By the time I reached the edge of the dock, he was gone. No footprints in the sand, no rustle of brush, just empty stillness, the cicadas deafening again. By midday, the heat was unbearable. I sought shade in the generator shack, though it was worse inside, air thick with rust and oil. That's when I noticed something new. Marks etched into the concrete floor. Spirals, crude but deliberate, scratched deep by something sharp. I knelt, tracing the grooves. A whisper flickered in my skull. Not the soft lure from Beffy, but a command. Stay. I stumbled back, slamming the door behind me. Sweat slicked my spine, though the air felt suddenly cold. When dusk came, I tried again to call mainland command. My voice shook as I spoke into the dead air. Outpost 14 requesting evac. Repeat. Urgent request for immediate extraction. Silence. Then, faintly, a reply. Raspy, broken. Leave before the third night. I froze. It was the same warning, the same words from the letter, but the voice wasn't mine. It wasn't any human voice. It was layered, as though spoken by many throats at once. Night fell heavy, draping the island in suffocating dark. The glow returned in the jungle, pulsing faintly like veins of light beneath the earth. The drums followed, rolling like a heartbeat beneath the waves. I shut myself inside the barracks, every lamp burning, but the shadows still moved, stretching wrong, bending toward the corners where no light should fall. Sometime after midnight, the whisper came again, this time clear, close, brushing my ear though no one stood beside me. You were chosen. My blood iced. I sat frozen, barely breathing, staring at the door. I didn't want to sleep. I didn't dare. Because tomorrow night, the third night, was almost here. And the island hadn't lied. Morning came gray and heavy, the sky a smear of cloud that promised rain, but never delivered. My head throbbed from lack of sleep. The cicadas were still at it, relentless, their rhythm so steady it seemed to mock the beating of my own heart. I tried to settle into routine, check the radio, record the weather readings, inspect the generators, mundane tasks that should have calmed me, but the static on the radio gnawed at my nerves. It wasn't normal static. Beneath the hiss, faint tones pulsed, rising and falling like breathing. When I turned the dial, it shifted with me, always just out of reach. By midday, sweat drenched my shirt. I retreated to the dock, sitting where the waves lapped gently against the wood. Out there, at least, I could almost pretend this was paradise. Palm trees swayed, seabirds circled high above. But when I closed my eyes, the sound of drums crept through again, faint, deep, hollow thuds that seemed to come from beneath the water itself. I leaned forward, staring into the glassy surface. For a moment, I swore I saw shapes moving below, long, pale limbs drifting upward before vanishing into darkness. I blinked hard, and the water was empty. By late afternoon, I found myself wandering inland against my better judgment. The path was little more than a cut through the brush, half swallowed by vines. My boots sank into damp earth. The air was heavier here, the canopy blotting out the sky. That's when I found it, a circle of stones deep in the clearing. They weren't natural. Each one was carved with spirals and jagged lines, worn smooth by weather but unmistakable. At the center lay ashes, long cold, as though fires had burned here not days ago but years. I crouched, tracing one of the carvings. It was the same spiral I'd seen scratched into the desk in the barracks. My finger lingered in the groove, and for a heartbeat, the cicadas went silent. Then came the whisper. Not in my ear, inside my skull. Low, feminine, stretched like a song pulled across water. Closer. I ripped my hand back, stumbling. The cicadas shrieked to life again, louder than before. My breath came fast, ragged. I left the clearing at a run, branches whipping my face, the jungle tightening around me. By the time I reached the outpost, dusk had settled, bruising the horizon purple. The comms tower loomed crooked against the fading sky. Lights flickered once inside the barracks, though I'd left them off. I stepped cautiously inside. The fan spun overhead, though I hadn't touched the switch. My duffel had been moved, shifted from the cot to the corner. Someone, or something, had been here. I grabbed the radio, desperation cutting through my fear. Outpost 14, requesting response. Anybody copy? The static hissed. Then beneath it, a voice. Not military, not human. It sang. A low, drawn-out tone. Not words but melody, rising and falling like the tide. My skin prickled. The paper from my predecessor lay on the desk, and for the first time, I noticed faint smudges on the back, half-faded fingerprints, as though clutched in panic. Leave before the third night. Outside, the drums began again, louder now, rolling like thunder across the waves. And I knew with absolute certainty they weren't coming from the shore. They were coming from below. I first saw the island at dawn, a jagged black tooth rising from the Indian Ocean. My orders were simple: rotate in for a 3-month stint monitoring radio traffic, weather data, and maintaining a lonely military outpost. Nothing about the briefing suggested danger. Nothing mentioned that the locals on the mainland refused to even say the island's name. The ferry dropped me off with 2 crates of supplies, a shortwave radio, and a sealed envelope from my predecessor. No handshake, no goodbye. The crew never even looked me in the eye. They unloaded my gear, shoved the crates across the dock, and left me standing there while the boat pulled away, its wake cutting a white scar across the water. The outpost itself was small, 3 concrete buildings, weather-stained and hunched against the shoreline like tired beasts. Jungle pressed close from the interior, thick with vines and palms. Cicadas screamed from within the green, but their chorus carried a strange rhythm, as if the sound were being conducted rather than random. Inside the main barracks, the air was stifling. The ceiling fans stirred only dust. I set my duffel down on the cot and noticed the envelope resting on the desk, my name scrawled across it in hurried black ink. I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, creased and blotched with sweat. The handwriting was jagged, urgent. Leave before the 3rd night. Don't listen if they call you. No signature, just that. I read it 3 times before laughing nervously to myself. Hazing, I thought. Soldiers playing tricks on the new guy. But even then, some part of me, the instinct that prickles in the back of your skull when you're being watched, told me it wasn't a joke. By afternoon, the heat pressed down like a living weight. I explored the station, an empty comms room with a radio set humming faint static, a weather tower leaning precariously, storage low. Lockers filled with rusted tools. Everything bore signs of abandonment. My predecessor hadn't left in a hurry. He'd left like he never intended to come back. That night, I couldn't sleep. The jungle never went quiet. Beneath the cicadas' endless drone, I heard something else. Low, rhythmic thumps, like drums carrying over the water. I tried to tell myself it was waves against rock, but waves don't follow a pattern. Waves don't keep tempo. Around midnight, I rose and stepped outside. The ocean was black glass, the moon smeared behind thin clouds. From somewhere inland, past the tree line, a faint glow pulsed. Not firelight, not lanterns. Something colder, stranger. It shimmered against the leaves like veins of lightning trapped underground. I froze at the dock, pulse hammering, half expecting someone to emerge from the jungle. No one came. Only the cicadas drone, louder now, carrying that same unnatural rhythm. I told myself it was nothing, turned back inside, and lay on the cot. But sleep never came. Because every time I closed my eyes, I swore I heard whispers weaving between the cicadas. Words stretched thin by distance, not in English, not in any language I knew. Yet somehow I understood them. They were calling. And the worst part was how badly some part of me wanted to answer.